Good morning. It's Thursday, November 26th. Happy Thanksgiving, and this is The Drill. Thank you. The prayer of the day comes from me. Dear Lord, let us give thanks for all that you have given us. Amen. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. Who is the true conservative? First and foremost, he is realistic. Secondly, he's God-fearing. The true conservative is the man who follows his plan. He's appropriate. He's the person that has the courage of his convictions and is confident in what he knows. He's the person that subordinates politics to reality. He's not selfish, but minds his own business. He acts like an adult. He's patriotic and uses common sense. He's judgmental and moralizes. He refuses to speculate, speaks clearly and definitively, and is not afraid to say no. He's open-minded, asking why, rather than why not. He's consistent, credible, and influential. Not ashamed of his existence, unafraid to learn or correct his mistakes. He's a normal American, and he is better than the socialist. He's a better friend, father, brother, family member, and a better person, period. You have to know that being a true conservative is best, or you're wasting your time. And additional examples of what it means to be a true conservative can be heard by listening to John Cobelt and Ken Champeau on the John and Ken Show on KFI AM 640, Monday through Friday from 2 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. My podcast is short, approximately 5 to 20 minutes long, because shorter podcasts are easier to download and listen to. And the biggest socio-political influences in my life are my parents, my teachers, Hugh Hewitt, Glenn Beck, Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, Dennis Prager, Buck Sexton, Joe Pags, the Enlightenment, Ayn Rand, and Dr. Mortimer Adler. My podcast is made available through Spreaker and can be heard on iTunes, Spotify, Google, YouTube, and now CastBox. I can be reached at thedrill12@gmail.com. Today, a question from a listener: where do we stand? The 6 commandments, quote of the day, how to win conservative vocabulary, how to think about feelings and neutrality, conservative aphorisms, socialist aphorisms, and socialist vocabulary. All that when I come back. Thank you. Yesterday I received a surprisingly cogent question from a YouTube subscriber. The question is as follows: do you think that any politicians actually care for the causes of society in general? Example, Donald Trump was a Democrat prior to running as a Republican. Let's see. You see the conservative base rally around him as he touts their values. I believe he has done a lot of what he said he would, but I don't know that he or any politician truly holds the values they do for a short time, or that they for a short time promote. I'm pretty straightforward on my podcast in stating that politics is a game and corrupts anyone who plays it. Chattervast. Not only was Donald Trump a Democrat, so was Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan explained his decision to leave the Democrat Party, saying that the Democrats had moved too far to the left. There's nothing wrong with changing your mind, as long as you admit that you have changed your mind and explain why. This goes for policy changes as well as political party changes. Too many politicians change their mind or flip-flop and pretend that they haven't changed their mind, being duplicitous. Joe Biden's positions on mandatory mask wearing and fracking are classic examples. Too much emphasis is placed on politics anyways, and not enough on culture. Abortion, for example. We have a society that values promiscuity and therefore supports Roe v. Wade. If we return to a society that values privacy, chastity, and loyalty, then promiscuity will wane, abortions will become unnecessary, and Roe will be irrelevant. Once the politicians see the change in our culture, they will change their minds about abortion. The biggest problem with the news besides undeclared bias is the lack of continuity. I decided to take the issues facing the country and report on them daily until the story is complete. Hence, where do we stand? Rudy Giuliani and his team went to Pennsylvania to speak with the Pennsylvania state legislature about their case, the Trump administration's case, are outlining their case that there was widespread voting fraud in this election. The presentation was impressive. It was professional, direct, and unequivocal. Donald Trump is still president of the United States. We Republicans have a 6-3 majority on the Supreme Court. Republicans have gained at least 8 seats in the House of Representatives. The Senate is currently 50-48 in favor of the Republicans, with 2 races outstanding. By the way, this, let's see, Republicans have 27 governorships to the Democrats' 23. Republicans control 55 of 99 state legislative chambers. Since the Democrats suck, this is good news. President Trump and his team are fighting massive voter fraud. 4 more states have lost their mind and legalized the recreational use of marijuana. And the state of California is about to go completely insane by creating a ballot measure to decriminalize magic mushrooms, heroin, and cocaine. And anybody in California that is presented with a petition to put this on the ballot should refuse to sign it. This is what the left does. It creates a foundation and then builds on it. The monster that has been arraigned for shooting 2 Los Angeles sheriff's deputies should, if there's any real justice, get the death penalty. George Soros still is not dead yet, but I sure wish he was. No law enforcement union has yet been decertified, and no laws shielding officers from prosecution have yet been repealed, and that's dangerous. The most unpatriotic piece of legislation in America, the Patriot Act, is still the law of the land, mocking the Constitution and creating the blueprint for the autocratic rule in this pandemic. New York Times v. Sullivan continues to encourage news people to be super citizens who can use unnamed sources to slander and defame people at will without fear of consequences, meaning they can't be fired, they can't be sued, they can't be criminally prosecuted. New York Times v. Sullivan should be overturned. Where's the expose on the Washington Press Corps? Where's nonprofit news? The communist flu continues. Blue Cross and Kaiser Permanente continue to take our premiums while they use lockdowns to avoid paying claims. Governor Newsom has enacted a racist scheme to keep Californians locked down indefinitely. When I come back, conservative vocabulary. Thank you. There's more to being a true conservative than how you vote. If you want to be a true conservative, you have to act, think, and talk like a true conservative. Hence, conservative vocabulary. Words like no, go back, acceptance, mind your own business, from now on, right, wrong, good, should, bad, evil, reality, certainty, morality, beauty, and polity. These are terms that the left doesn't want to use because they are realistic. How to win? Follow the conservative commandments. Number 1, thou shalt not be neutral. Number 2, thou shalt not be pragmatic. Number 3, thou shalt not be idealistic. Number 4, thou shalt thou shalt not subscribe to the cult of expertise. Number 5, thou shalt mind thy own business. And number 6, thou shalt keep thy curiosity in check. When some lefty asks where all the evidence of election fraud is, the best answer is evidence to satisfy whom? There is no good answer to that question from a lefty perspective. The quote of the day: if your religion doesn't teach you the difference between good and evil, your religion is worse than useless. Dennis Prager. As conservatives, we make the presumption for the status quo and change only when there's an obvious or prima facie case for change. But many of the changes that our civilization has seen are not necessary but gratuitous. And the following list is of concepts and abstractions that shouldn't have been changed or left by the wayside, and so they should be brought back. Bring back normality, sanity, privacy, property rights, the pre-1970 filibuster, outlawry, single-income households, integration, parenting, and along with it, corporal punishment, the primacy of existence, the certainty of knowledge, and universal rights and wrongs. Bring back principled behavior, masculinity and femininity, Adam 12, John F. Kennedy, the gold standard, pre-HMO medical care, nonprofit news, civil service, the term stupid question, arguments and fights, the cultural influence of the church and the Boy Scouts. Bring back the Lions Club and the Rotary Club. Bring back bowling. Bring back linear thinking. Bring back smart. Be of good cheer. The universe is benevolent and success is to be expected. Therefore, the left has no authority, no power, and they can't win. Think about it. How to think about feelings and neutrality. Several decades ago, the battle cry of the left was, what about feelings? This preceded a big change in the way we communicate, talking about feelings instead of concepts and abstractions. Conflicts and arguments became opportunities to get in touch with our feelings. Getting in touch with our feelings is a prelude to no-fault relationships. Arguments and fights gave way to understanding, sensitivity, and neutrality. Arguments and fights are about growth, about correcting errors by finding out what went wrong and then correcting the mistake or mistakes. With neutrality, there is no growth. No one needs to admit to making a mistake. And if no one admits their mistakes, relationships become stagnant as the same errors are endlessly repeated. Neutral and neutrality are not values. Conservative aphorisms. Why? Who asked you? Who cares? Who is we? Are you sure? How do you know? No, you don't understand. No, you are not listening. No, you're not a leader or a change agent. Who died and left you in charge? Who told you that? You mean you don't know? When are you going to figure it out? And my personal favorite, get off of my lawn. Socialist aphorisms. Subvert the dominant paradigm. Question authority. Question everything. Coexist. Up next, socialist vocabulary. Thank you. Since nobody wears uniforms, how do you identify the socialists in your midst? How do you identify your political opponents / enemies? By the way, by their vocabulary. And by the way, it reminds me of the Russian Revolution, the Bolsheviks and the Mensheviks, the whites versus the reds. And how did they identify each other? Because they would set up checkpoints to try to, each side was setting up checkpoints to make sure that the other side wasn't infiltrating their territory, so to speak. And the way they would find out who was who is by shaking your hand. And if your hand was rough, they knew you were a worker and probably a Bolshevik. And if your hand was smooth, then they knew that you were a Menshevik. So, socialist vocabulary includes such words as stakeholders, Latinx, empower, going forward, mansplaining, politically correct, supportive, hegemony, organic, grassroots, code word, dog whistle, buy-in, pushback, stuck on stupid, walk it back, and the masses. The ICE tip line is 866-347-2423. The White House switchboard is 202-456-1041. 202-456-1111 or 202-456-1414. The Senate House switchboard is 202-224-3121. Back in a minute. Thank you. Who is the socialist? He's the man that seeks consensus rather than develop his own opinions. He's subjective, petty, and small, taking everything in life personally. He's outrageous, jaded, boring, and rude. He pretends to be a leader and a change agent. He's manipulative. He's sly, cunning, and deceptive. He dresses, acts, and speaks like a child. He's informal and terminally unique. He's childish and pretends that he knows nothing. He's pragmatic and ignores his conscience. He acts randomly and rationalizes his behavior, deterministic, blaming others for his mistakes, skeptical, demanding that others solve his problems. His unreasonableness and irresponsibility make him a bad role model and a bad father, brother, family member, friend, and a bad person, period. So if you think you should be friends with a socialist, think again. On the next episode, how we, the American people, rented out the Constitution for $1,200 down and $600 a week. And that concludes another episode of The Drill. Be honest, be smart, be beautiful, and always ask yourself, what is real? How do I know? And what should I do about it? I'm Ron, and that's The Drill.